and we'll get started in just a couple minutes. Welcome, everyone. See if I see some familiar names here. A couple. Yeah, I'm also very just excited to hear about our emotional connection to our skin. When I first was chatting with Dr. Keira, that was one thing I was just like, wow, because you don't often hear that with dermatologists. So I'm super stoked. Okay. If you're just joining, we're going to get started in just a minute. Go ahead and tell us where you're coming from and what you are most excited to learn about today. Hey, Tracy, Linda, Judith. Cool. And if you want to go on video, we'd love to see your face. If not, you don't have to. Hello, if you're just joining, we're going to get started in just a minute. We'd love to hear what you're most excited about. I saw Lisa, you just joined. Hello. And you don't have to go on video, but if you'd like to, we'd love to see your face. Okay, so while everyone's trickling in, I would like to welcome Dr. Keira and introduce her. So Dr. Keira Barr is a double board certified dermatologist, somatic trauma practitioner, and founder of the Center for the Mind Skin Medicine. She's spent over 2 decades asking the question that most doctors never think to ask, what is your skin trying to tell you? Through her research-backed somatic skincare method, she helps women understand the conversation happening between their nervous system and their skin and how to finally feel safe in both. She's also the best-selling author of The Skin Whisperer and a clinician educator who has a gift for making complex neuroscience feel like something you already knew in your body. Her work starts where most skincare stops, with the body that's been carrying it all. Because when your nervous system feels safe, your skin often follows. Welcome, Dr. Keira.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. This is fun. And I see someone's coming in from Washington. That's where I am too.
Oh, fun. Hi, Amber. Cool. Yeah, very exciting. When we started telling our customers that we have these live events often and we started letting our customers know that we were going to have you on, there was a lot of interest and excitement in learning just kind of all about what you do. So I'm really excited to dive in. Do you want to give us kind of maybe like a brief overview of what you do? I know that you work from a completely different angle. So what are we missing when we're talking about skincare? We're not diving a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I think, most women who find me, they already have a dermatologist. They've been to their functional medicine practitioner. They've been on all the supplements. They've tried the elimination diets, the pretty much every treatment, and they know there's something more. They know that there's something missing, and I help them connect those dots. Oftentimes, they are coming with probably 10 different diagnoses,
Mhm.
something with their skin, something with their gut, their hormones are off, and it can feel really confusing. So, when they land with me, it really gives them a peace of mind because it becomes very clear it's not 10 million different things. It's really one thing with several different expressions. And that's where the nervous system comes in because the skin is a visible expression of what's happening beneath the surface, particularly the state that our nervous system is in, which informs every other system how to function, whether it's struggling or so. Our skin really becomes this beautiful messenger rather than what the beauty industry, present company excluded and all, because I knew a holistic view, but for so long that when we see something on our skin, it's something to cover up, camouflage, or cover up and hide versus an invitation to really take better care of ourselves and be curious rather than critical.
Get to the root cause. No, totally. And I also forgot to mention to our customers, we are doing a special offer today. Chatting with Dr. Kara, she had mentioned she's really liking the citrus stem cell serum as one of her go-to products. So we are going to do a trial size giveaway with, I think Grace just put it in the chat, perfect, with all orders. So if you decide to place an order today, um, we'll run it through 2 o'clock today. Is that right, Grace? Or maybe you let me know.
It's live until midnight tonight.
Perfect.
And then you do have to add the citrus stem cell trial into your cart, which there's a link in the chat, and use the code ASC Citrus, and then that will show the product is free. But yeah, that's it.
Perfect. Awesome. And then we'll dive into a couple of questions that I wanted to ask Dr. Kira during this live event, but also plugged questions that you have into the chat. And then we're going to designate some time during and then towards the end to go over any questions that you might have. So, another question I had, what are some of the signs that the skin is overwhelmed emotionally? And what are women possibly blaming on aging or hormones that are actually not that?
Yeah, well, in all fairness, it's never just one thing, right? So hormones do play a role, especially in the perimenopause, menopausal phase of life. They're definitely declining, and we can dive into that. But a lot of times when we see things like flushing, the symptoms of rosacea, the redness, the flushing, the burning, the stinging, the increased sensitivity, and hives is a really interesting one. I forget which paper it was, but they talked about it as an emotional allergy. And so, oftentimes, especially women, we have been conditioned to make ourselves small, to not speak up, to, be the good girl, not take up space. And we wind up um, hiding away the parts of us that really deserve to be seen and understood. And when that doesn't happen, the skin has a way of showing us. If you think about the mind skin connection in real time, like I'm super excited to be here, but in full transparency, my palms are a little cold, they're a little bit sweaty, my pits are a little bit sweaty, right? Most of the time we would just ignore that or criticize ourselves for that, right? What that's telling me is, first of all, my aliveness. I'm here. Yeah. And it also lets me know that my sympathetic nervous system is on board. It's been activated. I'm in a state of mobilization. I'm not going to necessarily fight or flee, but my body is preparing for something because it feels maybe a little bit vulnerable to be in front of you. I don't know you that well, right? Like I'm excited,
Yeah.
but this is real time mind skin communication. So when you are speaking in a crowd, maybe you notice that the heat rising in your chest and the flush kind of moving up into your face, the sweaty palms, the sweaty pits. Like those are the things that we might discount, but that is real time mind skin communication happening. And then take that deeper in terms of certain conditions. If you've ever noticed before a big event, right, you get that one pimple, or for me, it's cold sores, right? So it's a stress response that's happening in anticipation because so much of how our body functions is shaped by imprints from things that happened in our past, right? We are constantly taking in cues from inside our body, our heart rate, our breath, whether we're tired, we're cold, we're hungry, from our external environment, the sights, the sounds. Like I've got this light on, right? But it's bright. And if I were to have this bright light on my face all the time, it's kind of like a little bit, it's overwhelming at times, yeah? And the in-between, the relational, someone's physical, their posture, their body language, the sing-song quality of their voice, the sternness of their eyes. And our nervous system is taking those cues in all the time, and it's trying to answer one question. Is this a welcome? Is this a warning? Yeah. And based on our lived experiences, if we weren't given the support that we needed, if we when we were crying when we were little, if we were told, just be quiet. What do you have to cry about, right? A lot of times, our tears were interpreted as a warning, not a welcome. This is not something that should be here. So now
Mhm.
adult life and our nervous system is always taking in these cues. And if it determines that there's a lot of warnings going on, it's going to activate that stress response. And we see that on our skin in many different ways. And so, I'm babbling on a little bit, but there's so much interesting, like, this isn't your imagination. I guess that's my whole um, I just want to normalize that what you're experiencing when you see the breakouts before a big event, that your skin becomes a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more irritated, or if you struggle with eczema or psoriasis, you flare, or after very stressful events, 3, 4 months later, your hair starts falling out. Like that is not your imagination. That is a response to your nervous system determining, oh, there were some warnings going on, sometimes ongoing. Maybe it was an acute thing, but there was a delayed response because we think of the stress response as something coming from the brain to the body. Yeah. Release of cortisol, inflammatory signaling. But most people don't know that your skin itself has a stress response mechanism. It has its own, hopefully, in when we've talked about stress on the internet streets and things, we've heard of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. It's the machinery in the body that produces stress hormones and tells the body to mobilize into protection mode. Well, your skin has its own version of a HP axis, which means that your skin produces cortisol, adrenaline, inflammatory signaling. So your skin becomes both a target and a source of the stress response, which is why we can use our skin as an asset and an ally and an invitation of like, hey, my skin's really breaking out. I might not know the exact cause because usually there could be many different things. It could be outside in with, exposure to a product or, poison ivy or something like that that really sensitizes the skin. Or it could be that my nervous system has felt under duress for a while and upstream that is affecting my gut. It's affecting my hormones. And so it just gives us a place to start. Right. So the skin is really this incredible organ that we've been taught to use as a glorified coat hanger or to cover up because it doesn't meet what society thinks is glass skin or perfection. But it really is, yeah, it's your greatest protector and is very helpful to invite you into ways to take better care of yourself.
I love that. It's so relevant. It's so real. Thank you for that. And I see things coming in the chat, and don't worry, I will get to them. I'm curious, so how do you help someone in your practice regulate, and what does that look like in practice?
Yeah, I think the first thing, we always start with what I call a skin audit. We really need to get the skinny on what is happening in your life. Yeah. What are the things, right? Because if you think about it, our skin is our ultimate boundary between our internal, external worlds. So everything we think, feel, and do impacts what shows up on our skin and the felt sense of what it's like to be in it. So I really want to get to know like what are the environments that you are living in, inside, outside, and the relational, because that will give us a clue of where do we need to start, right? For some people, I saw there was something about contact dermatitis. Oftentimes, contact dermatitis is something comes in contact with your skin and causes irritation. But the curiosity is, well, what is making your skin a little bit more sensitive? Skin barrier may need reinforcement, but why is that skin barrier a little weakened in the first place? Is it because of just the products, or how are you sleeping? Right? Because we know that sleep is so critical to repair, rehydration, rejuvenation of our skin. Cortisol breaks down that skin barrier, makes it a little bit more sensitive. So nutrition plays a role. So we're just gathering data. And then once we have that data, the ways to regulate are, well, where are the areas that need a little more support? Sometimes it is tactical, strategical, like, right, thing like lifestyle factors. But a lot of the time it's okay, how do we show? We can't tell our nervous system we're fine, we're safe, it's okay. We have to be able to show it. And that's where we have to bring the body into the equation, because so much of the information that determines how our hormones, function and our gut and all of that is from sensory information coming from the body to the brain. Brain uses that information to tell the systems, are we in protection mode or are we in restoration mode? Right? So then I would teach folks certain regulation practices that meet them where they're at, right? I always think of the nervous system kind of like an elevator that's moving between different floors. The top floor is that penthouse where we feel safe and connected. We have the capacity, our body's functioning optimally enough to be able to heal. That middle floor is that sympathetic activation, right? That mobilization to take action. Sometimes that's really necessary, but if we get stuck there, hyper vigilant, right? Thoughts racing, heart racing, our digestion is not where we're focusing our attention. Fertility is not where we're focusing attention because our body thinks warnings everywhere, I need to get away. Or the elevator moves down to the basement, what we call the dorsal vagal state, where it's really slowing things down to conserve energy. We don't have the resources for the repair that we might need for the skin, for the body, because we are just trying to survive. So the middle state, you might feel anxious. Bottom state, you might feel depressed, right? And there's nothing wrong with any of the states. We need all of them. They are all in service of our survival. But the invitation is, can we keep that elevator moving with enough fluidity and flexibility to make sure we can rise to whatever occasion and challenge that we are being faced with and meet it, appropriately. But most of us, our elevators get stuck on that middle or bottom floor for too long. And that's where we see chronicity of problems. We don't feel quite right. We feel, not quite like ourselves. And yeah, so I just want to name and normalize that. No,
Yeah.
no bad state. It's just sometimes we can get stuck and we need support to get moving again, right? Because there's blended states too, creativity and play. We need a little bit of that basement, actually that middle floor with the top floor, intimacy and snuggling. We need a little bit of that penthouse with a little bit of the basement, right? So they all serve their purpose. We just don't want to get stuck on any one floor so that we can't fully experience our lives.
And by not getting stuck, it's just normalizing it and being okay and just kind of being in flow with those things.
Yeah, and meeting ourselves where we're at. So I think a lot of what you might see on those internet streets, like on social media about somatics or nervous system work, and we just want to regulate. And we think that regulation means being calm, or we're sold the bill of goods that
For
that's what,
sure.
and that's not what it means. There's times when it's very appropriate to be angry. Someone just, crossed your boundaries. This is your ultimate boundary. Yeah. Leaky boundaries, leaky skin. And it's appropriate to be angry. But there are, centered ways to express anger. Able to learn how to do that so you're not out of your body. You want to be in your body and express so you're fully present. You can articulate and you can, say what you need to say and be met in the way that you deserve to be met. So, calm regulation doesn't mean calm. It means having the capacity to appropriately meet whatever situation arises. And that could be anger, that could be excitement, that could be, any emotion on the spectrum. You could be sad and regulated. Yeah. You can be angry and regulated.
So helpful for me right now, personally. So, and I'm sure a lot of people are connecting with this and feeling like this is very valuable. And looking at some of the questions coming through, we could take a pause and answer some of them. And then also, if I know we've had quite a few people join. Oh, we may have lost her for a second. I know we've had quite a few people join. So we are chatting with Dr. Keira Barr, who is a board certified dermatologist, and she really specializes in looking at the emotions, like not just looking at surface level things, as you're hearing with some of what she's saying. So if you're just now joining, that is what we're doing. And feel free to add your questions into the chat and we'll get to them. We also have an offer today. One of the products that she had tried and liked was the citrus stem cell serum. So we decided to give you one for free, trial size with all orders. Okay, let me go into some of these questions. So we have, and I also had this question too, but we'll look at Amber's first. What is an underlying cause of rosacea? I feel like I have it, I've had it most of my life. What can I do to minimize it? And my question, which maybe you can tie this in, is rosacea one thing? Is acne one thing? Is eczema one thing? Or is it all possibly a combination? Or like, can you speak to that just a little bit?
As I mentioned earlier, I think, you could simplify it. Maybe it's oversimplifying it, but it's one thing with different expressions. The pathophysiology, the science of how rosacea affects the skin versus eczema, there's differences, right? Because eczema, we know that there's filaggrin, the skin barrier function is affected a little differently maybe than the pathophysiology and than rosacea, right? We've done the research on, rosacea with the bacteria that might be the microbiome and how it might be affected compared to eczema. So there are differences, but they're all downstream expressions of upstream dysregulation and our genetics, right? So we have this genetic blueprint and this thing called epigenetics, the environments that we are living in, some things that are inherited too, things that are in our control, things that may not be, that determine whether those genes get turned on or off. So circling back to rosacea, the beautiful thing is, so there's several different variants of rosacea. Some folks have more papules and pustules that look more acne-like. Some, it's more just this erythematous, dilated blood vessels. Some, this burning, stinging. So there are different types, and they're managed a little bit differently. But what we have learned over the years is the intimate connection, right, between the nervous system, the gut, and the skin. And again, going upstream. If the nervous system is picking up cues from the environment and they are a warning, what does the body need to do? It needs to mobilize into protection mode. What happens when we go into protection mode? We do not have time to eat or digest food. This is why we see so many gut issues. So gut motility slows down. If gut motility slows down, the gut microbiome that is supposed to be in good balance, it can go out of balance. So the healthy bacteria doesn't have as much opportunity to flourish. That bad bacteria might, I hate saying good or bad, but ones that aren't as supportive can proliferate, and they can release something called lipopolysaccharides, which is essentially a chemical that might poke holes in the gut lining. So then the gut becomes a little bit leaky, and inflammation and signaling can go out from the gut and impact the skin. This is also why we see food sensitivities happening. Yeah. So that's one of the root causes of rosacea. That's why people say, fix the gut, fix the gut, fix the gut. Very important. But some people do elimination diets. They do a gut supplement protocol, and their skin is good for a little while, but then it rebounds. It's because the nervous system hasn't been shown, okay, it's safe enough to stand down, right? So it's never just one thing. We have to, kind of come in at different angles. But that's one of the things with rosacea, that gut-skin connection and that nervous system, that mind-skin connection as well. I saw something in the chat about hypervigilance.
Mm-hmm.
So especially, I had a client very recently. It was actually predominantly I work with women, but men find me as well when they really need support. And this was his story. He noticed, right? So this is that invitation of awareness. It's kind of like the first step. What are the patterns? When am I noticing this? And it was really curious for him. He knew that there was this cycle. He had tried every Metrogel, every drug. I mean, he was really into biohacking. He'd even done the nervous system regulation tools. But it was kind of this, right? We're using a tool and not necessarily knowing what tool to use at what time. So that is also what I work with my clients on, of meeting yourself exactly where you're at, not trying to force yourself out of a state. But he noticed that every time his sister texted him or he had to talk to his mom, that that flushing, that heat, and he would go into a full-blown, rosacea flare, right? His nervous system was getting those cues of warning, 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 right? So that is kind of where that stress piece comes in, and learning how to practice, okay, how do I ground myself before I pick up my phone, right? How can I be centered and grounded during the conversation? Right. So these are the things that we work on. When we learn what our triggers can be, we can work with them. And there's nothing wrong with them. Those things may still happen over and over again, but the healing doesn't mean that you'll never have that experience. The healing is recognizing what's happening when it's happening, so that you can meet yourself where you're at without criticism, and you can meet yourself with support. It changes the dynamic. You come out of those loops a little faster. They're not as severe. And your relationship to it completely changes too. Because now he knows that when he's about to talk to his mom,
Mm-hmm.
he's going to need to kind of prep himself and take really good care of himself before that. And while he's on the phone, he has some tools in his toolbox that we've worked on together, that if he starts to feel that, he knows how to support himself through it.
What's like one tool that you gave him, if
Um,
you can share?
it's always, I think the breath is the tool
Uh,
that is always with us. It's happening in the background to keep us alive. But when we can bring our conscious awareness to it as well, oftentimes what happens when we're in those moments of a little stress and overwhelm, we hold our breath. We don't even realize we're right, because something scares us, right? This is what we're doing. And even if we're not physically doing it, inside, that bracing is happening. So just even bringing that awareness, am I breathing? For him, it was, he had to ask himself every few seconds, am I breathing? Am I breathing? It's as simple as that. Some people get so frustrated. They're like, that's so stupid. That's so simple. That's not going to work. I guarantee you it will work.
it works. Yeah, I mean, you see it like with children. Like one of the first things you teach is like, let's take a few deep breaths, and you can see the transformation within a minute, of just several deep breaths with a child. So like I do think that we often forget as adults to fill our lungs like a deep breath and like let it go. And it's so real.
Totally. And why that works is, right, like really trying to take not just into your lungs, but into your belly, right? Letting that belly really expand.
Mhm.
And then as you exhale, the longer exhale, because it's the exhale that is turning on the parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest response. So you can take a deep breath in, right? But if you let it out, really feeling that belly contract on the exhale, and do that 3 to 5 times without really forcing it, because you don't want to make yourself lightheaded. But it really signals to the body, okay, we're okay, at least in this moment. Another really helpful thing too, right? If you're in a heated conversation, especially if you can't see someone, or if you are face to face with someone, a practice called orienting. So helpful. So if you think about animals in the wild, when you hear a noise, what do animals do? Or what do? We look around, right? We're scanning the horizon for danger. Where's that coming from? Yeah. We can do these things. So it's happening instinctively. And that's what's so, I mean, your bodies are brilliant. We're brilliant. And we've been doing these things our entire life and not understanding why or what's happening. But we can be intentional about it. Well, we can use our eyes, and then our neck can follow, of actually scanning our environment, looking around at the textures, the colors, right? Just and allowing your eyes to land on something that's pleasant or even neutral. Like, Rachel, I'm looking at your beautiful plants in the background, right? The green and the different shapes and like the texture of the leaves. And when you're feeling anxious, giving yourself that opportunity to shift gears, right? To remind yourself in this moment, I feel uncomfortable. I feel awful inside. But when I see the green of the leaves, I've got plants to my left too. I'm reminded, oh, I'm okay. And you can just feel your breath kind of settle. So a lot, and if you're talking to someone and they, and you look away and they think you're being rude, so be it. Better that you look away for a second than chew their head off, when you're having a conversation because you're feeling so activated. So give yourself that moment to just let your eyes wander around the room. And especially if you're alone and you're feeling overwhelmed or scared, look in front of you. But also, I always invite people to look behind you because oftentimes we feel like, oh, who's coming at your back? Like, is someone gonna, I'm like doing this, like stab you in the back, right? Like, you don't know what's coming, but you can, when you look behind you, you're like, well, at least in this moment, no one's coming for me. I'm okay. I got my own back. Yeah. So,
I love that. That's great. Cool. Okay, I'm going to scroll up just to see if anything else. I feel like I only got to one. We talked about, or you talked about contact dermatitis, so that's great. Someone had mentioned cold sores. Anything there you want to talk about? Yeah.
I recently had one too. And it was, we push through, we think we're fine. One more thing, do one more thing, right? I've got ADHD, so I'm like, everything is urgent, everything, I have to do everything right now. And again, in full transparency, I do this work because I need to do this work. My own health fell apart. As a skin cancer and melanoma specialist, I had to diagnose myself with early melanoma. And it was the first time that I understood that my skin had been talking to me, that our body speaks all the time. And it will speak through whatever it needs in order to get your attention. Right. So when I'm sharing this with you, it's because I had to go through it myself. So with cold sores, what we know, cold sores are the herpes virus simplex, yeah. And once we're exposed to the virus, it lives dormant in our nerve root ganglion. This is why when you start to, like when it gets reactivated, there's that burning, that tingling, the pain, because it's irritating the nerve root. So we know that stress activates the herpes virus. Now, stress could be many different things. This is why your dentist might ask you, do you have a history of cold sores? Because the physical procedure of someone mucking around in your mouth is a stressor. UV exposure, a bad sunburn, that is a stressor. Yeah. Mental, emotional stress, lack of sleep, stressors, right? So when we talk about stress, and this is why in my Calm Mind, Calm Skin program, we talk about all the different type of stressors because we tend to think, oh, I'm not stressed. It's, I don't feel stressed because it's not always the mental emotional load. It's kind of like this cup, right? There might be some mental emotional stuff. Then you're not sleeping. Maybe then you're not eating. You're not moving your body, the bills, and all of a sudden the cup is overflowing, right? So for each of us, it may look a little bit different, but stress comes in many forms. So when there is a stressor, and just I'll share my personal story. Um, I was speaking at multiple events and I had to put 4 different presentations together and I was burning the midnight oil and overriding my body's like I knew I needed to sleep, but I just had to get one more thing done. And those old tendencies started to come up of the people pleasing and all. And my body was like, nope, you're not getting away with this. And I start to feel that itching, burning, and thankfully, right, it's that familiar feeling that I could take my Valtrex and I could kind of cut it off at the pass. But that is what happens. And again, nothing has gone wrong. When that showed up, my body was doing exactly what it needed to do to protect me, to protect itself. Yeah. So again, hopefully having this conversation may reframe some of the things that we've been feeling frustrated and angry about, and understandably so. But our body is just doing its damnedest to keep us still on this earth, right? And we might not like how it feels and we might not like how it looks, but it's just trying to figure out a way to help us survive.
Hmm. I was just reminded hearing your story. I was doing this kind of a series. I don't even know how long it was. It was a spiritual healing journey, and it was just like a series of 1 hour calls every week, and it was just nonstop. And it was a lot of processing, a lot of emotion. And by the end of the first session, like a few days later, I just started breaking out, and like I was breaking out for weeks because of this just purging, and I was chatting with her about it, and she's like, you will purge in whatever areas. Do you want to speak to breakouts at all, or acne? I know a lot of our customers, that's not their biggest concern, but I feel like it's so relevant, and a lot of people do experience purges in that way.
Yeah. So again, this goes back to central nervous system and our peripheral nervous system, and our skin is part of that, and it has its own stress response system. So again, it's like a double whammy from the center to the out, from the out to the in, and acne in particular. Um, you know, when the body is in a state of, receiving warning. So how are you sleeping? How are you eating? And for all of us, we talk about what foods might activate. There's dairy for some people because there's dairy, especially it's interesting. Skim milk, for instance, has higher sugar content than whole milk, whole fat milk. And what they found is that it stimulates something called insulin growth factor 1, which directly can activate those oil glands. So for some people, dairy might be an issue, not for everyone, right? But I always think of everything as like, this is our lab, and we're going to be doing some experiments, right? That's why my upcoming program is called the Skin Reset Lab, because this is our laboratory, and we're going to do some experiments and see what data we get. And there's no bad data. We're always learning about ourselves. And at different points of our life, it's kind of like, it's like a slinky. We're going around and around, and, layers may exfoliate, and we're learning new things. But with acne in particular, we know there's a hormonal component to it, right? So if we're thinking about the nervous system, we know the skin and the nervous system talk to each other all the time, but so it's like a two-way street, but it becomes a four-lane highway because the nervous system is like command central telling everyone else how to behave. But the nervous system, the immune system, the cutaneous skin, and the endocrine system are all talking to each other all the time. Yeah. So if there's warnings coming in from various different reasons, sleep, nutrition, stress, mental, emotional, the immune system is getting some information, send out those inflammatory cytokines. Um, the hormones are shifting protective stress hormones, cortisol, which we know directly stimulates oil glands, directly shifts the microbiome, directly impacts skin cell turnover and the inflammation we might see. And it affects our sex hormones. So if the body's prioritizing making stress hormones in service of our survival, our sex hormones might go out of balance too. Thyroid hormone, as well. And so we know, especially I saw some stuff about perimenopause, menopause. This is where I've heard so much that I never had acne before. I don't understand. I'm, breaking out. I'm losing my hair. I'm growing a beard. WTF. This menopause thing really sucks. And yes, it can, because there's all this shifting, because our estrogen, progesterone goes down first, actually, then estrogen. So you have this relative androgen dominance. And this is also happening and then you add stress onto that. So that's like, a real depletion of what's happening in the perimenopause, menopause phase of life. But we see a similar thing in adolescence too, where there's a relative androgen dominance, and those androgens, the testosterone and such, those stimulate those oil glands too, and inflammation. So, yeah, so this is kind of why in different points of our life, we might see that. And again, that gut skin connection. Just like in rosacea, we know that the gut microbiome goes out of balance in acne.
Mhm.
So that's why probiotics and kind of healing the gut lining can be really supportive. But we also have to see, okay, well, what else is causing the nervous system to send out those signals of warning? And yeah.
Cool. Amazing. Okay. I'm going to read another question. I've used ASC products and all clean products that contact dermatitis began on my mouth, like chapped lips, then neck, and then finally around the hairline. It was peeling and itchy. Any thoughts on what to do? Allergy testing revealed some chemicals, but I don't use them. I'm currently using one product at a time, but I'm still experiencing the chapped lips that nothing helps.
Yeah, sometimes there is cross reactivity for products, like for instance, and so without knowing it, it may be hard to say, but for instance, poison ivy. I'm severely allergic to poison ivy. Little did I know before I became a dermatologist that mango skin has a similar chemical as poison ivy, urushiol. And my hands broke out in a terrible rash. I actually had to go to the hospital. I was in a different country. And same thing with cashew nut oil. There's a cross reactivity. So the curiosity is you may not be using that particular chemical, but is there a derivative or something that could be causing a cross reactivity? That may be possible. And chapped lips, sometimes not, again, not knowing you, has it been evaluated for actinic damage, sun damage, because we can get something called actinic cheilitis, and that would require a different type of treatment. Yeah. Um, so those are just some thoughts.
That's great. That's wild about the mango. I had no
Yeah.
idea. It's insane.
But I just can't peel it. Do not ask me.
That's nice. Peel my mango, please. Okay, another question. Grace had mentioned, somebody from Facebook was asking, when I deal with extreme stress, my back breaks out. A doctor said it was my nervous system overreacting, but I've had trouble finding something to combat it and trouble regulating myself so I don't overtax my system. What would your recommendations be to help both in the counter and resolving that skin problem, not allowing myself to get to that stress point? And also, when you answer this, I'd love for you to talk about your skin reset lab. Yeah.
I was just going to say, first, I'm glad that you have a doctor who is open to the possibility that this is, there's more to you than just this breakout. And two, even the language, yeah, like combat it, countering as if there's something wrong with you for having some sort of reaction. Of course, you're having some sort of reaction. Life is hard and it's overwhelming. And I'd be concerned if you weren't getting, stressed. Stress is a natural adaptation. We need stress in our lives to help move us towards something or move away in service of our protection. So, in terms of how do you support yourself, first of all, it's hard to do things alone, right? If we think back to our childhood, how did we learn things? We learned it through another. Hopefully, we had an attuned, caring, supportive individual who could help meet our needs. But we learn self regulation, how to help ourselves through first being helped through another, what we call co regulation, right? So there's nothing wrong with you that you're having trouble doing this on your own. If no one has ever showed you how to support yourself in the way that you need to be supported, that's not your fault, right? So the Skin Reset Lab is where we co-regulate together. This is why I love working one-on-one, but I find groups so powerful and intimate groups. Yeah, I love at least I see a thumbs up, right? Because the energy of one another, and especially people who are, we're on this journey together. We want to show up for each other. And this might be the only place in our lives where we can just fully be authentic and show up because outside everyone is expecting us to hold it together. Yeah. So inside the lab each week, right? I've shared a lot about the science, but a little bit more to help you make sense of your experience because it can be really easy to think there's something wrong with you. You're the only one. You're crazy, blah, blah, and you're not. And then we learn these tools to help meet ourselves where we're at, right? The different floors of the elevator, you're going to need a different tool depending what nervous system state you're at. So if you try a calming breath when you're like, right? Like first we need to help you release that stuck energy so the system then can come back into what we call homeostasis. So there's nothing wrong with this. But when you have nowhere to put this over and over and over again, what happens? The body stays in a state of bracing. And that has its own challenges, right? The chronic pain, the aches, digestive issues, which then can get expressed on the skin. Yeah. So I just want to honor and name, I'm glad that your doctor named that for you. And also, there's nothing wrong with you for having trouble being able to counter that or resolve. I would say we may never resolve. Those responses are happening for a very, very good reason. But you just might need support of learning how to meet yourself there to support it and be able to move through it to complete the stress response. And that's not a problem.
That's sweet. Okay, Lisa has her hand raised. Lisa, did you want to go off mute?
Yes. First
Hi.
of all, thank you, thank you, thank you. This is just like phenomenal information and very much needed. And if I could tell you how you're speaking to my soul, I don't even have the words to express that. So I needed to speak, not like I'm not good at typing, but I'm good at expressing myself verbally. So I wanted to thank you guys and thank Rachel and the team for even setting this up for us and recognizing that this is so important for women's health. But the question I have for you has to do with, are you aware that there's any connection between if you're having some kind of skin breakout and if it's on a particular part of your body, is that connected to a particular, if it's connected to a particular emotion or organ or anything like that? I'm just curious about that.
I love that question. And
Same.
um, e- I am not an expert in, traditional Chinese medicine. Um, I have had positive experiences from Ayurvedic medicine myself, and so there are um, thoughts about organs having emotions tied to them. For instance, um, the heart and lungs, sadness and grief, the gallbladder, anger and fury, and the liver as well. The colon being uh, associated with anxiety. People will do face mapping, and there's this one woman on Instagram, and honestly, I just want to call bullshit all day. I mean, there's no science from what she's saying, but I do believe um, we are energetic beings, and I do believe that they're probably, when we think about the meridians and their chakras and things like this, and what I see presenting, for instance. I have a client with hives, and so spontaneous eruption of hives. And it's fascinating that the drug industry, they just came out with all these biologics, these immunosuppressive drugs to try and get rid of hives. What I have found again and again, especially women with hives, like breaking out 3 or 4 times a day on 3 or 4 different antihistamines, max dose, no relief. The throat chakra, not being able to speak their truth, being told to be kind, to be quiet. Um, one of the clients, yeah, a woman of color, growing up in a town where basically she was the only one who was different. Then going into a male dominant field of engineering again, a woman had to, and so there were so many instances in her life where she had to contract, make herself small and quiet. So we worked on vocalization. And what's beautiful is we talk about the vagus nerve. If you're familiar with the vagus nerve, comes off the brainstem. And the vagus nerve has branches that innervate the face, the throat, the heart, the lungs, and into the belly, innervates the organs of the belly. Above the diaphragm is our social engagement system where we feel safe, connected. That's why smiling and, eye contact. Below the belly is that dorsal vagal, that basement, things can slow down. Well, right along the vocal cords on both sides is the vagus nerve. So when we hum, when we chant, when we sing, it vibrates. The vocal cords create vibration of that vagus nerve, and that tells the nervous system, okay, we can calm down. It's a safety signal. It's a safety signal. So this woman, we worked on vocalization. First, just humming, chanting to get her comfortable with what that was like, and then actually practicing some movement, breath, sound, and movement. That is, how we show it's the language of the body. She started from 3-4 times breaking out on maximum dose antihistamines, one breakout every few days on her antihistamines as needed. Now, I'm not saying for everyone that is going to be the case, but when you've done all the things, right? This is a both and. I am not anti-medicine. I am grateful for my training. I'm grateful for modern medicine, right? The Valtrex, I needed it. I need my drugs. But we overlook the impact of emotions and the way in which they shape our physiology and leave imprints. And when we don't address it, it leaves us feeling like there's something wrong with this, when in fact, there's something wrong with the way medicine is being delivered. If you look back to our ancestors and ancient cultures and how they dealt with issues, it was a full body experience. It was a cultural, community experience. So hopefully that answered your question a little bit, Lisa.
No, absolutely. You just shared even some more additional information that I was needing. It's just, it's just something else how um you don't know what you need until you get it.
Yeah.
You are striking on so much of what I've been looking for and what I need, and helping me to put some pieces of the puzzle together in reference to what's going on in my life and getting a greater understanding. I can't even, I just thank you. That's all I can say. Thank you so much.
I'm grateful for you, and I'll tell you again, that's how I wound up here, because shit really hit the fan. And as a physician who was already in medicine for 20 years, the shame that I felt of I'm supposed to know how to deal with this. I didn't know anything about menopause. I mean, I wound up again, we're just friends. Our ladies. I wound up having a hysterectomy in my early 40s because nobody, to your point, nobody was connecting dots for me. They're like, you've got gut issues and hormone and this thing and that thing. And number one, in my mid to late 30s, no one, the light bulb went off for none of my colleagues that I was in perimenopause. None, right? So hormones are already declining. I'm running ultra marathons. I'm in California sun all the time, raising toddlers, working in an academic center where they didn't respect women's, having to juggle all the things. There was so much stress in all its different forms. And my nervous system was just like, we give up. We're going to shut you down. We have to slow you down because you cannot keep going this way. Yeah. So growing and changing moles, needing biopsies every few months. Finally, there was that one that turned out to be early melanoma, but it was the gut issues. It was the hormone issues. I had endometrial, my body was turning on every gene possible to be like, alert, alert. These are warnings, slow it down. So the fact that, right, trying to connect the dots, and I feel like that is, I have to pay it forward because no one connected the dots for me. We have all these things in our lives that are going on, and it's not, again, oversimplifying, right? And it's not, but a dysregulated nervous system that is command central telling all the other systems in our body it's not 20 million different things, it's different expressions of a body that is in need of support it might not be getting. And how beautiful. You're a loving human. We are wired for connection, but we've been taught to disconnect from ourselves. So all of this is just an invitation of that love and care and support that you give to everyone else in your life. You show up at work for your family. We're gonna turn it towards ourselves, which is really, really hard to do because we've been taught we're not supposed to do that. That's selfish, all the things. So they call it a practice for a reason. Yeah.
That's a nice little wake-up call for sure.
Oh.
Just in so many ways,
Yeah, for sure.
So how could, I want to get to any other questions there, but with 5 minutes left, how can somebody find you, learn more, sign up for your email, find out about your program, just all the things, get more involved with you?
Yeah, so my website, drkeirabarr.com. I'm actually going to be hosting a workshop on the 28th. We're just kind of updating the page. So, and that link is, you could always email me, hello at Dr. Keira Barr, and I can share it with you to go into a little bit more detail about what we talked about. And then the Skin Reset Lab is going to be next month, where over 6 weeks we gather together live, an hour and a half to 2 hours, and really not just talk about these things, but have a felt experience of what it's like in our body to be with sometimes a little bit of discomfort and know how to handle it, right? So we're not combating it, we're not trying to push it away, but to learn how to be with it to support our system to come back into better regulation and do it in community because that's medicine too, right? To be seen and witnessed exactly as you are. So I'm super excited about that.
I'm so excited for you and everybody who joins. I think it sounds amazing. I'm going to definitely follow up with you so we can get a link and send it out to
So
our people. Okay, I love that. The other statement from Angie was just a statement, not a question, but this has all been so powerful, so helpful. Even if someone's not experiencing something currently, just like having that reminder to take a step back and just connect with yourself and be gentle with yourself. Um, any last things you want to share? Anything?
I think, we're talking a lot about the internal, but I mean, it's really important to protect that barrier as well from the outside in. And I was sharing, the stem cell serum. First of all, it smells delicious. And our senses, right? When I talked about the three pathways that our nervous system is trying to get data, is this a welcome or a warning? Our senses, our five senses, what we call exteroception, our olfactory sense, our sense of smell, is like a really powerful sense because it bypasses some of the brain chemistry there to go directly to the parts of our brain that regulate our emotion. And so, right, even just the act of slowing down and just smelling the serum before you put it on can help your nervous system settle. Yeah. Um, and so many of the products that Amory Skincare makes are so nourishing. And there's really good science. So this is not just because it feels good or it might look good. This is what's really cool. There's a recent article, I think it's called Healthy Brain, Healthy Skin. I don't know, I can share the article. But really, the bottom line was reinforcing our skin barrier through moisturization and UV protection. And I know you've got your Sun Love sunscreen. Not only does it protect against UV damage locally, right? And 90% of visible signs of aging are from UV exposure. So please, 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 sun is good, but we don't want to get we want to get the benefit, not the burn. Skin cancer is the number one cancer in the United States. So we just, just protect yourself. But when you use moisturizer and sun protection, they found that it increased mood, cognition, and longevity. So it's not just good for your skin, it's literally good for your brain. So taking care of your skin is good for your brain. So I would just say keep using your products. Enjoy them and slow down because they smell delicious and really get that benefit, right? The ritual of applying your skincare is just as much medicine as the ingredients that are in the skincare itself.
So true. Yeah, the ritual is everything. Just taking that time to really care for yourself is so important, so essential. I firmly believe that.
Yeah.
Well, this has been amazing. There was one last question, but we do only have 2 minutes. I don't know if you can answer that in 2 minutes. Might you be able to share how to help a conditioned bracing in belly that I know is a disconnect protective response?
Yeah, I know. Good, because I'm very wordy, right? 2 minutes is hard. But I would, first of all, the fact that that awareness, it's a bracing. Yeah. So maybe even when you feel those moments, this is our most powerful tool that we own, our hands, and our skin is covered with sensory nerve endings that respond to touch. Again, going directly wired into our nervous system. So when you feel that, maybe just even inviting a hand onto your belly, just even offering that support. Yeah. Like, I got you. We might not know exactly why we're feeling this way, but just a hand of support. I got you. Maybe one hand on that chest, right? Checking in with your breath. When you're feeling that bracing, are you holding your breath? And then maybe even allowing yourself to take those deep breaths and feel that belly expand into your hand, right? So your belly is feeling held by your hand is feeling the soft expansion of your belly. And just invite yourself into that longer exhale. Yeah. So I would just say that is one simple thing that you can be doing. But even just letting your belly know, like, I got you. You're braced. It's okay. We can feel braced and supported at the same time.
Beautiful.
I did it.
11 o'clock. Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us and being here and sharing all of your wisdom. This was really valuable, and I'm sure the recording, everyone will just love it.
Thank you. It was super fun. Thank you all for showing up and for being here and for sharing.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. I appreciate this community.
Amazing. All right. Well, we will definitely follow up with our customers to send you all some information about her course. And yeah, thank you, Dr. Keira. I'll be in touch.